Hello everyone, thanks again for tuning in to another episode of FlyFishDan. In this episode, we're going to talk about one of the most critical mistakes that people fly fishing make either early on or even years after picking up the sport of fly fishing. And that specifically is how you take care of your gear.
So I just watched the video back and I realized I didn't outline the critical mistake. So the critical mistake is when you're out there fly fishing, you're having a ton of fun, you're reeling in fish, you're finished with the day, you're feeling great about the experience, and you put your gear away without doing anything at all. You just throw it in its case or put it in your fishing room or toss it in the garage, doing nothing. And that right there will just destroy your gear long term. All right, back to the video.
And be sure to stick to the end of the video because I'm going to give you another fly fishing pro tip when it comes to maintaining your fly gear. So with the power of editing, we're going to transport ourselves into my bathroom back at home where I like to do a lot of my maintenance. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to find a rag. Don't use the nice dish towels. You're going to get in trouble if you do that. But find a rag, put it out on the countertop because you're going to be putting some wet items down, and I like having a soft surface to put my fly reels down. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to pull the reels apart. You're going to be able to see on the reel there's either a lever or it's some sort of compression where you just pull it apart to be able to get to the inside of the reel. As you can see, inside the reel, there are a lot of components and moving parts that not only need to be rinsed, but also need to be maintained. So the first thing I do is I run this reel under warm water for an extended period of time. I even use my fingers and hands to really get this thing clean. If you notice, I'm not using any soap. Soap will break down the oils that are already on the reel, could potentially damage your fly line. So just use good old-fashioned straight water when you're doing this big rinse off. So rinse everything off, get everything completely clean, both on the outside and the inside of your reel. Once you get that complete, typically I'll set it down on the towel and let it air dry. But for the sake of this tutorial, I'm gonna dab off some of the extra water so I can get right to the reel oil that I'm gonna put on some of these components. So when you're using this reel oil, less is more, right? You don't wanna put a bunch of oil inside of this fly reel because it will start to leach out, get onto your fly line, and can make a really big mess. So less is more when you're using reel oil. So if you look at this particular component that holds the spool onto the fly reel, I'm just adding one single drop to the very top, so it'll gravity will kind of bring it down to the and cover the rest of the metal. I'm also putting another drop down where the gears meet, both above and below, and maybe just a little bit, a half of a drop on where the clicking mechanism is. So I'm only using maybe 2 to 3 drops of this reel oil inside of my fly reel at any given time. You do not want to use too much, so be sure to do that. Most of the reels that I have a disc drag or a click and paw, so it doesn't have any type of bearings other than what you're seeing inside the reel right here. Now, I do have a couple of other reels that have a ceramic bearing, and these reels typically do not need any oil. You can see, I'll take the cap off and look inside. That is a ceramic bearing, and all it really needs is a good rinse. Now there is a component, the clicking component in this particular reel, that I do put just a teensy bit of oil on just to keep that component from rusting and so that it'll work the way that it should. So don't use a ton of oil. Now that that's all done, I put everything back together, I spin the reel, make sure everything is nice and evenly distributed inside the reel. The next thing you need to consider on your fly reel is the fly line itself. Fly line will last a lot longer if you do these two things. The first thing is just take care of the fly line. So what I do is I'll fill the sink up full of water, put the stopper in, and I'll peel off all of the fly line that I just used on a given trip. So all the fly line is now in the sink full of water, and we're ready to put the fly line back on the reel. What I'll do typically is I'll get a butt end section of a fly rod, attach the reel in the natural reeling position, grab another towel, and I'll pinch the fly line firmly so it goes onto the reel with some tension and allows the fly line to pass through the rag and essentially dry and clean itself as I reel all the line back into the reel. So that's another tip whenever you are cleaning your fly line. Makes it really easy. So the sink works really well for this, but so does the shower. Sometimes when I'm taking a shower, I'll just bring all of my fly gear in with me and take care of it while I'm showering. But for the sake of this video, we'll stick with the sink. So once you've got everything cleaned, everything's dry and it's ready to go back together, when you put the spool onto the reel, you want to apply a little bit of pressure, spin it around, and you're gonna hear that distinctive click when the reel spool has seated properly onto the fly reel. It does take some practice. Sometimes it takes a little while to find that sweet spot, but just kind of put pressure down on the reel, spin it along until you hear that click, and now the spool has seated properly onto the reel. All right, now it's time for your fly fishing pro tip. Now when I'm done with my fly reel, I put it back into a case. The case not only protects the reel itself, but it keeps harmful UV rays from shining onto your fly line, which helps break it down much quicker. That's why a lot of my fly reels are in their cases or in their individual cases whenever I'm storing them for long periods of time. So before we go, if you're just getting into fly fishing and need a little help with your fly fishing cast, check out this tutorial right here. I think you'll find some tips in this tutorial to help you cast this fly rod a little bit further. All right, everybody, thanks for tuning in, and until the next time, fish on.